Okay, so welcome everyone. As I said, we're first going to give you a brief overview of our project. And the project as a whole has the title Post-Socialist Britain, Memory, Representation and Political Identity Among German and Polish Immigrants in the UK. The project is funded by the UK Arts and Humanities Research Council and is being delivered by myself and as I said, my colleagues at the University of Birmingham and Nottingham Trent University. Now, we officially began this project in February 2021. We submitted the application in February 2020 when life and times were very different. So we've had to adapt a little bit to the new circumstances. But it also means that we're in the very early stages of our research. We've only completed the ethical and literature reviews and some pilot interviews. So why have a workshop so early on, you might ask? Our aim is to present and get feedback from you on our intended approach and your ideas on how we can make the research useful for and usable by different groups, so academics, professionals, community organisations, policymakers, schools and individuals. Now you might have noticed that the project subtitle indicates its particular focus on Poland and Germany. However, I'd like to stress that we hope our project as a whole and its findings will be much more broadly interesting. So that's why we framed this workshop as focusing more generally on migration with countries with experience of state socialism. And so you're all extremely welcome. Thank you very much for coming. So this project has its origins in a puzzle. So I'm sure we're all familiar with the trend in European politics in the last few years. Traditional parties are struggling to maintain their dominance, and we've seen that quite clearly in the recent German elections, shifting in the process away from the centre ground. And parties to the far right of the spectrum in particular are attracting an increasing number of voters. Now, this phenomenon can be observed across the continent, not least in the UK, and yet the move to the extremes of the political spectrum is seen especially starkly in a number of countries that can be described as post-socialist, that is, that have a history of state socialism. Now, I'm going to come back to that term in a moment. So observers of this support for anti-immigrant, nationalist and populist politics have frequently turned to the past in search of an explanation. Commentators in the German press have sought to explain support for the right populist party, the Alternative for Germany, by arguing that Eastern Germans are resistant to democracy because they have not properly worked through the histories of National Socialism and Communism, that the empty anti-fascism of the GDR allowed such attitudes to remain intact, or that a failed culture of memory means that citizens of the East long for an idealized version of state socialism. In the Polish case, it's argued that the instrumentalization of the past, specifically of virulent anti-communism and assertion of an unfinished revolution, is the organizing principle in the political field in the country. The supposed connection between the experience of authoritarianism and present political identity and behaviour is contested in Germany and Poland. And I want to stress that we also don't accept these arguments at face value. And a key aim of the project is to test these claims. Indeed, if we look at Polish and German immigrants in the UK, it appears more complicated still. There is some evidence that Polish right-wing extremist groups are operating in the UK with connections to comparable British organisations. However, there's no similar evidence or evidence of a similar phenomenon amongst German nationals, whether they be Eastern or Western. So this leads to our primary research question. What happens to the link or the supposed link between memory and political identity in the process of migration? Both Polish and German migrants bring their collective cultural and individual memories with them as they move to the UK, and yet these memories are expressed in a different socio-cultural and political environment. Their memories are connected to their country of origin and sustained by ongoing links to that community. However, they're also inflected by experiences in the new country. So these overarching research questions can be divided into 4 further areas of inquiry. What can the study of memory and migration tell us about how the past impacts on the formation of political identities? How is memory interlinked with other factors in this process? What factors determine if and how memory contributes to support for or rejection of xenophobic and/or extremist politics among immigrant communities? What can exploration of memory and migration contribute to understanding of how memory is created and transformed in relationships with others? So we examine the intertwining of memory, representation, inclusion, and political identity within two of the largest immigrant groups living in Britain, using a mixed methodology that I'll explain, or will explain, in fact, in a moment. But you might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with post-socialism? Now, many of you will have noticed the question mark at the end of the project's title. This is to make it clear, firstly, that we are interrogating the concept of post-socialism itself. Is it still relevant, and if so, for whom? In its simplest form, post-socialism refers to those countries formerly under state socialist, or in common parlance, communist rule, especially in Central and Eastern Europe. It refers to a period of transition, but also the time after, that was nonetheless impacted by what has gone before. Sometimes post-socialist can be viewed as a stigmatizing term, indicating a person or country stuck in the past or backward. Now we want to underline that that's emphatically not how we are using it. Instead, we're thinking about how post-socialist memory, that is individual, familial, or cultural memories of state socialism, and how the past affects and is represented in the present. So we want to think about how those memories and the past affects and is represented in the present. So in this sense, post-socialism for us functions as a kind of palimpsest, layered with other things, other experiences and other events, or a spectre, as Dominic Martin describes it. For some, this manifests in a rejection of a strong state and a rejection of liberal values. Others assert pride in the resilience they have proven in a difficult time of transition to market economies. So post-socialism is diverse. So what then does that have to do with Britain? We want to explore the ways in which post-Brexit Britain can also be considered post-socialist. Britain is made up of the people who live here, and that includes a large minority of people with post-socialist experiences under socialism itself, or in the time of transition. The exclusion of their memories and heritage as part of the fabric of British culture and society risks making those communities invisible, which can in turn contribute to existing processes of marginalisation based on constructions of race, ethnicity, class, and socioeconomic status. Indeed, since the 2016 referendum on Britain's membership of the EU, before then, but especially since then, immigrants from member states have faced uncertainty regarding their future, and there's been a reported increase in hate crime and playground bullying targeted at immigrants from Central and Eastern European countries in particular. Central and Eastern European immigrants have also had particular difficulty negotiating the UK's increasingly hostile border regime. However, we also want to avoid falling into the trap of ourselves viewing Central and Eastern Europe before and after 1989 as somehow sealed off from the West. The capitalist and socialist worlds were intertwined, and their existence was in relation to one another and to the rest of the world. Ideas and influence travelled in multiple directions. We can't therefore proceed as if the collapse of one system had no impact on the social and cultural fabric of another. Britain also exists in this world after socialism, and migration from Central and Eastern Europe is part of that. Juza Giller has explored this relationality as part of what she terms, borrowing from Nancy Fraser, the global post-socialist condition. One result of that relationship with the West is, Giller argues, the rise of the far right. So to do justice to this complex topic, we deploy an innovative interdisciplinary approach. The research deploys methodologies drawn from across disciplines to address the research questions from different viewpoints. So the project is divided into 4 methods-based strands: narratives, networks, media, and communities. Now my colleagues will, one after the other, explain what approaches will be taken in each strand, and I'll then outline the dissemination plan and ways to get more involved. So firstly, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Maren Rohr, who is going to tell us about the narrative strand. Thank you, Maren.
Yes, hello. Welcome also from me. So I'm going to talk about our narrative strand, which is conducted by Sarah, Pavel, who will speak in a minute, and me. So in this strand, we conduct narrative interviews with Polish and German immigrants to the UK. And we are currently recruiting participants for these interviews. So if you know any Polish or Germans in the UK and would be able to put them into touch with us, let me know. Our objective here is to examine how Polish and German migrants deal with memories of post-socialism and socialism in the UK context and how they link these memories to their political identity. So more specifically, we want to answer questions such as how do participants interpret collective memories from their home countries in the new environment? How do participants see themselves and the world? What is the relationship of this perception to their political identities? And also then, what is the impact of different factors, such as the economic situation, the sense of security, sense of belonging to British society, or rather to Poland and Germany, respectively? What is the impact of participation in the Polish-German community in the UK, of Brexit, experiences of discrimination? So that relates to topics that we want to discuss in the workshop today, to get an impression of what is the migration experience and the context of migrants from Poland and Germany. And then finally, we're asking how are the different elements, such as memory, economic security, constructions of ethnicity, inclusion and representation, interwoven to form a coherent story, a narrative of participants' identities. And overall, the relationship between memory and political identity is shaped by factors such as inclusion, personal networks, perceived social hierarchies. And these factors are influenced by migration, and they differ quite strongly between Polish and German migrants in the UK. So this research is an opportunity to explore in what ways they shape the relationship between memory and political identity. Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Pavel Duba and Dr. Jenny Wustenberg to explain the network strand.
Pavel, you're on mute.
Oh, that's fine. All right, I think it's better now. So it's great. Hello to everyone. It's great that we could meet all of us this afternoon. And I will speak briefly about our strand, about the basic things concerning our strand. And in the strand, we put the problem of the agency of mnemonic actors at the center of our interest. So we will examine actors responsible for the dissemination of memory, which affects the political identity of Polish and German migrants in the UK, and the pathways through which this memory is mediated and transferred from the home to the host country. We will examine so-called ego networks composed of the central actor, broker, and his/her connections. We understand broker as an actor substantially contributing to the formation of political identity and understanding of the past by community members. Therefore, brokers have to act as disseminating agents, not merely as the recipients of mnemonic contents, and might be placed in between their home countries and the new place of living. Our method will be the social network analysis. With a few exceptions, it has not found extensive application in the memory studies yet. However, the social network analysis based on ego network is already used in migration studies, and we will draw on this experience and of this discipline, and we will prepare our own open-ended interviews with memory brokers, and we will adjust this method to our needs, and we will use it as an original tool in our research. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavel. Well, thanks from me as well to everyone for coming today. It's great to actually sort of be in a room with real people after we've been talking so long about this project. I do hope we have the chance to actually meet each other in person sometime soon. Well, Pavel has already explained really the gist of the network strand. I was just going to add something because you might be wondering what that colorful image actually means. This refers to our main methodology, social network analysis, and specifically to the idea that we're using this in a qualitative way. So we will be also conducting interviews, about 30 interviews with members of important organizations, brokers, as Pavel said. And we will be trying to figure out with them together, not just to map who the important actors are in this network of determining, how we see memory and migration as an influence on political identity, but also to understand how people invest meaning in memory. So as Sarah pointed out in the fourth research question she had on her slide, right? How is memory created in relationships, so through relationships? So that's what we're interested in. And we're using a software called VenMaker, and that's what we'll be having as a result, these little maps where people in our interviews try to draw their own network that is important for them, that they use in their work. So I can answer more questions about this later if there's interest, and I won't go into too much detail now. But this is what we're trying to do in terms of our innovative methodology. So I'll hand over to, I think, Charlotte now.
Yes, so Dr. Charlotte Galpin is going to explain our media strand.
Hi, thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Thanks also from me for being here. I'm really looking forward to some interesting discussions this afternoon. So as Sarah said, I'm working on the media strand along with Maren, and our kind of overall objective with this strand of the project is to understand the discursive space in which Germans and Poles in the UK are defining and developing their political identities, and how this might interact with their memories from their countries of origin. And our starting point for looking at the media is recognizing the importance of the public sphere and the media for political identity. So this is a space for democratic participation and for the development of solidarity and community, but it's also a space for a space of exclusion, particularly for marginalized groups in terms of gender, race, and minority or migration status. So for us, in what might be post-socialist Britain, how far and in what way are post-socialist migrants addressed, and how far can they participate as members of the political community? So to do this, we're employing a narrative frame analysis approach, and broadly speaking, exploring the what ideas, what memories, what stories about Germany and Poland and of German and Polish migrants are dominant in the UK news context. So we are analysing, firstly, news articles about Germany and Poland. So we're looking for articles about German and Polish migration, immigration, and also about German and Polish history and memory in the most widely read online newspapers in 4 categories of major of the British press. So the publications we're looking at will be The Guardian, the Telegraph, the Daily Mail, and the Express, to try and get a range of kind of views and discourse across the country or political spectrum. And then in addition to that, we're going to look for social media responses. So we're going to look for articles that have been shared on the newspaper's official public Facebook pages, and we'll collect and analyse comments and debates about those articles. And so the idea then is to establish the kinds of public and social media responses to these representations of Germany and Poland in the press and in the kind of then the broader social media sphere. So that's one final thing is that we're also looking at, we're taking the kind of most recent time period of the 5 years between 2014 and 2019, which is the last electoral cycle of the European Parliament. But this is quite a interesting time period to look at because it covers the last 2 European elections, Brexit, the 2015 Polish elections, and the 2017 German federal election. And this is also a time period where we saw kind of increasing popularity of populist right-wing parties in various countries across Europe, and these debates about pro-socialist memory and the far right were coming to the fore. So I think I will hand back to Sarah now, who will talk about the community strand.
Yes, thank you, Charlotte. So the last strand is the community strand, which I'm leading with Oksana Bishin, who is due to start with the project on the 1st of October, but is here today. Oksana, if you want to turn your camera on and wave so we can see who you are. So the community strand of the project has been designed in order to integrate research impact from the start. It is also, however, intended to generate research data. So the strand has 3 core goals: the direct involvement of community groups in the development of the research, effective dissemination of the results with and to those groups, but also exploration of the ways in which individuals give voice to their memories in dialogue with one another. That is how memory in migration works on the ground. So to achieve this, we've designed a method based on the principles of arts-based research. So building on advice from our project partners, who you'll hear from in a moment, the Central and Eastern European Arts Space Centrala, we recognise that it's both ethically and methodologically problematic, and to avoid parachuting into community. Sorry, it's problematic to parachute into them. So it's crucial to avoid parachuting into community groups and asking them to participate in research into which they've had no direct input. So the community strand addresses this by creating a forum for engagement with the research and the co-creation of research data and outputs. So the forum takes the form of photography club for European migrants living in West Bromwich near Birmingham and in Hyson Green in Nottingham. Note this is deliberately more inclusive than the Polish and German focus in other parts of the research. The workshops will be led by professional photographer Oksana Bishin, who, as I said, is officially joining the team on Friday. The focus of the workshops will be in the development of skills in photography of local places, buildings and objects that are of importance to the participants. And then the photographs themselves will form the basis of storytelling within the group, as participants will be asked to attach narratives or testimonies to the work they produce. And then the photographs and the narratives together will constitute the research data for the project. The photographs, narratives, and also recordings of the story exchanges will form the subject of an exhibition hosted by Centrala in Birmingham and at a second location to be determined in Nottingham. So this exhibition will be developed by the engaged communities in collaboration with an artist in residence. And then project partners, Creative Black Country, will commission a series of artistic performances, such as spoken word, theatre, comedy, around the exhibition for the Sandwell and Birmingham Mela in the summer of 2023. So why take this approach? Scholars have listed several advantages of arts-based research, including its ability to cultivate empathy, unsettle stereotypes, challenge dominant ideologies, and include marginalised voices and perspectives. The report produced by the team working on the large-scale AHRC Cultural Value Project similarly highlights several relevant benefits of culture and by extension cultural inclusion, giving minority groups a voice and allowing them to express their identity, avoiding an entrenchment of identities through an absence of representation, well-being and health benefits, reduction in poverty and social stress, reduction in ethnic and racial harassment, building empathy and increasing civic engagement. Now that's quite an ambition, but it's our hope that post-socialist Britain will realise some of these benefits for those involved. So how are we going to let people know about our research findings? So we have a diverse set of dissemination plans with the aim of reaching a number of different audiences. So we have these workshops with key stakeholders. Welcome, this is the first one, in collaboration with Centrala and also the group, the organisation Polish Professionals in London. So make sure you follow us. More information on how to do that in a moment. Follow us for more information about the next one. We're going to be publishing a series of op-ed and opinion pieces in the local and national press. So Charlotte and Maren recently published a piece with the title German Election, Continuing Popularity of the Far-Right AfD Has Roots in East-West Divide in the Conversation. It's a great read. Then we will be, of course, producing academic journals from the narratives, media and networks strands, a monograph which I'm going to be writing about the community's work and also trying to bring those strands together. We'll be holding a conference and also publishing a special journal issue from that conference. And then there is the virtual and physical exhibition emerging from the Photography Club in collaboration with Centrala, Creative Black Country and the Artist in Residence. 3 policy briefings, one on integration and community cohesion, one on xenophobia and extremism amongst Central and Eastern European communities, one on the role of the press in exclusion and exclusion of immigrant communities. And finally, we'll be producing schools resources broadly on post-socialism in collaboration with European Welfare Association and the British German Association, who are also partners on the project. We also have this website, which is fresh and new. It has only been up for about a week. This is where we're going to be hosting the virtual exhibition, including an option for people to add their own photographs and narratives. And this is where we'll host also all of the open access publications. This is where you can find out about our events and find out more about the project and the team. So in terms of finding out more and getting involved, you can visit the new website. The address is postsocialistbritain.bham.ac.uk. Follow us on Twitter at soc_post. Visit our Facebook site. So the tag name is PostSocBrit. Or just contact me and I will make sure that you are included in the mailing list. So in terms of the workshop today then, what we are going to do is firstly this introduction to the project and to the participants. So in a moment, I'll ask you to introduce yourselves. Then we're going to move into breakout rooms, 3 breakout rooms, one on xenophobia, nationalism and authoritarianism, one on the integration of communities, and one on the representation in media and arts. And then we'll come back together. And as I said, we'd like to record this part for an open discussion, drawing those key ideas together. And then the recording is just for us, but we will send anonymized notes to all the participants of that session, and also the recording of this presentation, so that you have a recording of what went on. Okay.